right, level check. Hello, level check. Cool. What is an AI agent and what is an agent swarm and what makes it autonomous? There's been a lot of hype over the last week, driven in part by myself, but not just me. For a little bit of background, OpenAI released their Assistance API, which a lot of people are just calling agent because it's easier to say. It's 2 syllables instead of 3. And so now all the hype is around how do we create AI agents. So before we dive in, let's just talk about what is this at a high level. So if you're watching this video, you might be a developer who's just coming to the idea, or a business leader, or maybe you're just curious and you want to know what all the buzz is about. So the easiest and simplest way to think about this is that it is just the next evolution of automation. And so you've probably seen the videos of, the little swarms of little floor robots driving around Amazon warehouses. They can go fetch boxes from shelves and they can, put it in a larger box to be shipped off. That is an example of a physical swarm where you have pretty much interchangeable robots that any one of them can jump in or out of the work queues and get work done in the physical world. They are interacting with the environment. They're receiving instructions from some kind of controller, and they're also able to make some autonomous decisions on their own, such as avoiding collisions and that sort of thing. That is kind of the physical manifestation. And so why we're also excited about these digital agents is because now they're powered by large language models, and soon they'll be powered by more multimodal models, but also they have the ability to interact with a digital environment. And so what I mean by that is they operate in cyberspace. They operate by connecting to APIs and databases and that sort of thing. So an individual AI agent has, it's basically defined by a few things. It has autonomous function, meaning you give it a task or a list of tasks, and it's able to prosecute that list of tasks. And rather than interacting with a warehouse, it's interacting with whatever digital space you give it. So you might give it access to certain APIs or functions to call. You might give it access to databases or other coding abilities. It's able to make some decisions on its own, such as deciding what API to talk to or how to talk to that API. And because it's able to make some of those decisions on its own, it has to judge those decisions based on either specific goals or other principles that you can bake into it with instruction sets. And this might sound really simple, but this is the kind of automaton that was only dreamt of as of just a few years ago. And one thing that I want to point out is that a year ago this time, people were still mocked for talking about AGI. Now, mainstream media is not only talking about AGI on a regular basis, they've just started talking about superintelligence on a regular basis. So we are ramping up very quickly. The Overton window is shifting, and it's due in no small part because people like Sam Altman, Mustafa Suleyman, and Satya Nadella are actively talking about AGI. And so once the CEO of a big tech company talks about AGI, now it is okay to talk about this stuff. So it is ramping up quickly and it is coming. But this is what one single AI agent is. What is an agent swarm? So an agent swarm is what we realized was the next logical step. Once you can instantiate a single agent very easily, which there are several platforms and projects out there that allow you to do this, it is easy to spin up an arbitrary number of agents. And so if you're in software development or architecture, this is very similar to spinning up containers. So, for those not in the know, basically the way that software runs today, at least large scalable deployments of software, is that it's all run in tiny virtual machines called containers, which is a self-contained environment that can run some bit of code. So imagine that you have one agent or several agents per container, and now you can instantiate literally millions or billions of agents on the fly all day, every day. Again, it's not that much different. This is basically just the merging, the next logical step of large language models and container technology. We've already got the underlying technology. Now we're just putting it together. And so whether you have a fleet of containers or an agent swarm, the idea is now your containers are smarter because they are enabled by large language models and generative AI technology. Again, this is a brain dead simple next logical evolution, but with any leap like this, there's going to be new problems to solve, such as how do you orchestrate these things? When they're this intelligent, how do you tell them what to do? How do they know that they're succeeding? We have several projects that we're working on that I'll talk about closer to the end of the video. If you want to learn more about how we're actually implementing this code and you want to get involved, it's all open source. And so then finally, because we have agents that are able to make decisions and prosecute missions, we have the ability to have agents that instantiate other agents, which means that you can have hypothetically, you can have a fully autonomous agent swarm, meaning that you have agents that are responsible for controlling, puppeting, and instantiating other agents. And then the idea here is that it is self-organizing, principle-driven, and self-improving. So this is the dream. We don't know if it's possible yet. The current models might not be smart enough, but it is eminently possible, meaning if we can't do it today, certainly by this time next year, we will have fully autonomous agent swarms able to do pretty much anything. If it's got an API, it'll be able to talk to it, which that means that APIs that connect to data stores, to code bases, to model training, AI-based APIs, pretty much anything with an API will be automatable by these agent swarms this time next year, which is why I'm still confident saying that any definition that you have of AGI will almost certainly be satisfied by this time next year, if not sooner. I ran a poll yesterday, and I think something around 40% of people, 30 to 40% of people, think that AGI has already been achieved in secret, and then another 40 to 50% think that AGI is imminently going to be achieved. And I suspect that agent swarms are going to be one of the most practical ways to implement it, because rather than putting all of your eggs in one basket, what you're doing with agent swarms is that you're basically dividing and conquering. So that's kind of the high level. Now, real quick plug for my Patreon. I've recently moved to doing webinars for the premium tier subscribers. So the next webinar is December 8th at 11 a.m. US Eastern. I just sent out the invite to all of my existing Patreon subscribers. But yeah, so this is what I'm calling my AI masterclass. So in these sessions, which I already had the first one, it's recorded. So if you sign up, you can go watch the recording from November. But it's a monthly webinar session where I will give you the latest and greatest news from everything that I'm seeing and all the people that I talk to. So this is technical news as well as more political and financial news. So I talked to business leaders, I talked to researchers, I talked to lawyers, I talked to all kinds of people that are plugged into not just AI, but the high-tech and fast-moving space. So I can give you kind of a little bit of behind-the-scenes word on the street. And then we also talk about systems thinking, because systems thinking is how I do everything that I do. And I've got an up-and-coming book on systems thinking. And then finally, we move to a Q&A session, which since I just upgraded to Zoom webinars, it'll allow actually all of you to have sidebar chats and vote on the questions that you want me to answer. So go ahead and jump in on Patreon. I have 2 tiers. There's the basic Discord tier, which will get you access to my private Discord community, as well as some exclusive content. And then there's the premium tier, which gets you even more exclusive content on top of everything else, such as these webinars. Okay, so as promised, there are 2 open source projects that I am running that have to do with autonomous AI. So the first one is the ACE framework, the Autonomous Cognitive Entity Framework. So this is the culmination of more than 4 years of research that I've been doing on cognitive architectures. So what is a cognitive architecture? A cognitive architecture is just a software blueprint or a software plan to take these AI models, these latest and greatest AI models, and organize them in such a way that you can create basically a single agent. So the ACE framework has taken a while to find its footing, but we finally made an executive decision, particularly in light of OpenAI's progress towards cloud-based agents. So we have decided that the ACE framework is going to be 100% open source. So that means we're only going to be using open source models like Llama and Orca and Falcon. And we're also going to focus exclusively on local hardware. So the reason for this is because we want to ensure that autonomous agents are democratically accessible. We want to avoid vendor lock-in. We don't want you to be 100% dependent on Microsoft and OpenAI and Amazon and Meta and Google. Now, that being said, we do have a second project that will use those, and we'll get into that in just a second. But the two overarching principles, the two primary constraints for the ACE framework are that it was open source and local only. And so obviously that will constrain what we're capable of doing right now, but these models are improving fast. The hardware is improving fast as well. And so the link for both of these is on my GitHub, which is in the description, as well as Patreon, by the way. All the links are in the description of the video. So that's the ACE framework. So if you want to jump in, you can hop on over there. The GitHub is public. And then the Hos Project, so the Hierarchical Autonomous Agent Swarm. So the Hos Project is an evolution of the ACE framework, but rather than being a little bit more monolithic, this is cloud-based, and it's also going to be probably container-based. But the idea here is that we'll use the latest and greatest models, such as the Assistant API by OpenAI, to rapidly instantiate dozens, if not hundreds or thousands of agents. And then not only that, but we will also create a class of agents that is designed to control and orchestrate the rest of the swarm. So then you have supervisors and watchers, and then you have agents that are exclusively tasked with monitoring things like ethics and legality and resources and that sort of thing. So these are both open source projects. Now, obviously, some people will say, well, OpenAI isn't open source, which is true, but the code that we're using to instantiate these agents is open source, whereas the ACE framework, even the models that we're using, were going to be open source, entirely open source. So those are the two projects that I'm running. You've probably seen on my channel, I kind of post daily updates with these. I have appointed some community leaders, so I probably won't use quite as many daily updates on the YouTube channel, but they are there. And we also have a private Discord, or not private, a public Discord called the Autonomous AI Lab. So longtime viewers of my channel will remember that almost 2 years ago, I created the Cognitive AI Lab, which it kind of was directionless. It didn't really know what it was for. But so we're revisiting this. We're creating a brand new Discord server. Link is on the GitHub repos. It is the Autonomous AI Lab, and it is the Discord server for both the ACE framework and the Hos project. And there's also a robotic platform one called the Open Murphy project. So Murphy stands for Multi-Use Robotic Platform Humanoid Intelligent Entity. So basically, we're trying to create the Nestor Class 5 eventually. So those are the three open source projects that I'm running. And one Discord to rule them all, and there's 3 repos, one for each. We've already got some community managers set up, so these are the folks that are kind of leading the charge on the coding efforts. It's completely open collaboration. I do have a contributing document as well as code of conduct, so make sure you check those out. But yeah, go ahead and jump on in and start contributing and start collaborating. The one thing that I will say is that because it is fully open, the number one signal that I'm optimizing is reducing the signal to noise ratio, or I guess increasing the signal to noise ratio. So don't add superfluous noise, and everything will be fine. So thanks for watching. I hope you got a lot out of this. I hope this helps orient you to the direction that things are going. And yeah, I'm not going to say whether or not agent swarms are AGI. I don't really think that that's a useful description, but objectively speaking, what we're building right now is agent swarms, and we'll take it as far as we can get. So look forward to seeing all of you jumping in on ACE, Hos, and Murphy. Cheers.